Hello, everyone. I'm Fannie Mae, Marketing Manager here at Kidco Company. Thank you all so much for joining us for today's webinar. We would like to welcome Alana Metallo, Certified Sleep Consultant of MetaSleep Consulting. MetaSleep helps families navigate sleep and live in a well-rested lifestyle. Through consultation, they educate, guide, and support families about the benefits of healthy sleep and help parents create customized sleep routines for their child's nap and bedtimes. When summer comes to an end, August will be the time to foster healthy sleep habits to transition back into a regular sleep routine. In today's Kidco talk, Alana will provide valuable insights and practical tips to help ensure a smooth transition into the new season. We're so thrilled to have Alana join us today. If you have any questions throughout the session, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So Alana, it's over to you.
Thank you so much, Fanny. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm just going to share my screen with you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and join us to talk about sleep. Okie dokie. Hopefully everything is good with my screen sharing, but we are here today to talk about ways that we can restore healthy sleep habits that might have maybe fallen off track throughout the summertime, which is very common as we get outdoors more often and, start to explore our community, head on vacations and things like that. So have no fear if your sleep has got off track over the summer. It's really easy for us to get back on track with a few tips that we'll be talking about today. And like Fanny mentioned, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the question box and we'll address those at the end for you. So my name is Alana Metallo. I am the founder of MetaSleep Consulting. I work with families across the globe to get healthy sleep habits back into their home. I am also a mom of 3 girls. I am an elementary school teacher, and I, love nothing more than working with families to help support them on their both educational journeys and sleep journeys. So sleep is a vital part of our everyday life, and quite often it's something that we don't really make a priority. We're often more concerned with, healthy eating and exercising, but sleep is something that should be at the top of, our priority list. As we know, uninterrupted sleep is the healthiest type of sleep. So we're really looking to get our children, as well as ourselves, sleeping consistently, through the night and sleeping, those scheduled naps and that happening throughout the day in order to make sure our bodies are getting the correct amount of sleep for our specific age. As we know, sleep deprivation can have some harmful effects on our body, which we'll talk a little bit about. But we're really looking to get about 10 to 12 hours of uninterrupted sleep happening each night. And so that goes for a wide variety of age groups, which we'll talk about as well. And we know that children who do have healthy sleep skills in place are much happier, they're more attentive, they learn better in their environments and are just thriving more than those children who are struggling with sleep. So sleep deprivation, has impacts on many parts of our body. It affects the way that we think, the way that we behave. It affects the way our heart works. It causes irregular heart rates. It puts us at a risk of heart disease, as well as diabetes. And so it's really important that we are helping to care not only for our own bodies, but for our children's bodies when it comes to sleep, so that we aren't, having these negative impacts on our body. You'll know that if you've had, not a great night of sleep the next day, you might, wake up feeling very, on edge, very moody, have a hard time focusing, have a very short temper, perhaps. And all of those things are, your body's way of letting you know that you haven't had enough sleep. So it's really important to listen to those signs of your body, so that, we can be conscious of the things that we need to take care of. And if we're getting, a good night's sleep, then you'll see yourself starting to feel better and be more present, in your child's life and in your own life. So a very common question is, how much sleep should we be getting? And, it really, it varies, but there is a common trend of how much sleep we should be getting, each day and each night kind of thing. So, for infants, toddlers, kindergartens, children, we're looking for between 10 and 12 hours of uninterrupted nighttime sleep, plus any naps that are happening during the day. So nap time frames range, from infancy all the way up to 12 months. And so, depending on the child's age range, sometimes, they'll be taking 4 naps a day, 3 naps a day, 2 naps a day, 1 nap a day, as they get closer to, age 1 and into those early toddler years. And, those children who are still taking naps or multiple naps a day, we really look for them to be anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half long per nap. With the exception of cat naps, which typically will happen later on in the day, closer to that dinner time mark. And those cat naps are typically very short, between 30 and 45 minutes. And they're there to add as kind of a buffer time frame to kind of tide us over until bedtime. And so as your child grows, their wake windows will become longer, and those cat naps will end up dropping off as they'll be able to stay awake longer until bedtime. A typical bedtimes lie anywhere between 6 and 7:30, depending on how well naps went or how poor naps went, if there are naps happening. And so, if your child has had a series of poor naps throughout the day, you really want to bump your bedtime earlier. Bedtime can be as early as 6 p.m. And some people are fearful of this early bedtime because they think, oh my goodness, they're going to be up at, 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that. But honestly, sleep gets sleep. So if you're putting your child down at an appropriate time so that they're not in that overtired state, they're actually going to sleep longer. Right? We all have this common misconception that if I put my child to bed later, they're going to sleep in later. It generally doesn't happen that way, right? Some children, you could put them to bed at, 10 o'clock, and their internal clock, their circadian rhythm is going to have them up at the same time every day. So if they're generally up at 6:30, even though you put them to bed so much later, they're still going to be up at 6:30, and then their body hasn't had enough sleep. And you're really going to notice changes in their behavior and their mood the following day. So you want to put them to sleep earlier as opposed to later in order to prevent those types of behaviors from happening. Sometimes parents will say, well, but they didn't look like they were tired, or say they said they weren't tired, which is super common. Children don't want to go to sleep. They want to play. They want to be with us. They don't want to miss anything, right? So it's important for us to be, the guide for them, as opposed to let them know, when they should be going to sleep. And as long as you're keeping your bedtime, interactive and engaging, and allowing them to have responsibilities as they get into those toddler years, helping them to be a part of their bedtime routine, you will notice that things become easier at bedtime. Typically for toddlers and kindergarten children up to really age 5 and 6 years old, we typically go to bed around that 7:30 mark. So quite often our children are staying up too late, which ends up making bedtime a really big challenge, right? I get a lot of, conversations with parents that bedtime is just, a nightmare. It's a battle every single night. And that's often because our children are going to bed too late and their bodies are overtired. So once their body's in that overtired state, they're having a really hard time controlling themselves, both physically, emotionally, mentally. And so we really want to be mindful of, how long they can stay awake for and not stretch that too far. Otherwise, it ends up causing a little bit more trouble when it comes to sleep periods. As our children get a little bit older, they require, a little bit less sleep, still between 9 and 11 hours. But, they can go to bed a little bit later and, get by on a little bit less sleep without noticing a lot of changes in their behavior. So as we approach the sad time of year, which we are, getting towards the end of summer, we start to look at shifting our schedules, right? If your children are, going to kindergarten or we're going back to school, we've got to start to get back into that kind of scheduling, right? Or maybe, your children are in preschool or in daycare and you've taken some time off over the summer and your schedules have shifted. We want to start to slowly get things back on track. And we can start doing that, as early as now, right? We've got a few weeks left before, September is going to roll around. And so we can start by doing that by, if you had a really great system in place before and it's just got off track because of the summertime, go back to what you were doing before. Consistency is the key to keeping the magic of sleep happening. So the more consistent you are with a plan in place, the easier things are going to become. And when we are consistent, it's predictable for our children, and children thrive off of predictability and consistency. So the more you're doing something, the more they understand what's happening and what's going to happen next. As much as children like to, push boundaries, test limits, those types of things, they really do like things to happen at the same time every single day. Right? It allows them to know what's going to happen next without any surprises. So, you want to keep things consistent from day to day. And when we're looking to shift our schedules as we're getting closer to, that time of year, we want to you can gradually change your schedule even by 15 minutes each day. So if your child's been going to bed a little bit later, I know mine have, we're going to slowly make our bedtime earlier by 15 minutes each day. And those little increments will help to make that transition easier. So if maybe you've shifted bedtime to 9 o'clock, let's say, you've been outdoors, enjoying the summer, nights and that, tonight, maybe your bedtime's going to be 8:45 for tonight and maybe tomorrow night. And then we're going to shift to 8:30 and 8:15. And we're going to, work backwards until we get to the time that is appropriate for our child's age. As well as we want to make sure we have a consistent wake up time, right? So if we've got to wake up for work, for school, for daycare, whatever it may be, and we have to leave the house by 7:30 or by 8, we want to make sure that, if we've got to be up by 7 o'clock in the morning, that we're starting to get into the habit of waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning, right? And so there will be that transitional period of time where, it's going to be a bit of a struggle in changing your schedule. But as long as you're consistent with your schedule, things will fall into place much sooner. But if you start to change your schedule and then go back to old ways and then start to change and go back to old ways, you're going to end up with a lot of pushback and a lot of overtired behaviors. So the more consistent you are, the more smoothly the process is going to run. You also want to maintain, this consistency from now until, we're starting school or starting daycare. And then you want to keep it consistent, while you are in your new routine. Sleep is not going to be perfect every day, every night, right? We have events, we have birthdays, we have weddings, celebrations we want to be a part of. And it's absolutely okay to, change sleep for, those special moments in life and that. But, when we do get off track for sleep, one day, tomorrow's a new day, get back on track tomorrow. And this way, the quicker you get back on the bandwagon, the easier it is for you and the easier it is for your child. The longer you stay with kind of an inconsistent schedule, the trickier it is to get back on track and the more pushback you're going to get. You also want to make sure their sleep space is set up so that it's nice and dark and cool. We know the summer brings a lot of bright natural light into our rooms. So blackout curtains are, key. Sometimes even that little bit of light peeking in can cause our children to wake earlier. I'll talk a little bit about sleep space in the next slide. But darkness is key. Darkness is what signals to our body that it is time for sleep. It's what raises the melatonin levels in our body. So we want to make sure darkness is a part of our sleep environment. As well as if you have, toddlers, school-age children, you want to make sure you set limits and boundaries and expectations and be clear about those things with your children. And we'll talk about what that looks like as well. But there's nothing worse than just, trying to, spring upon some kind of new rule or expectation to your child without a conversation happening around it. Even, giving warnings about things, all of those are very key to making things a smoother process, right? Keeping your children involved in the process of, bedtimes, nap times, any type of routines, transitions that you're having in your home is really key. It fosters, them to feel independent. It makes them feel responsible if they know what's going on and what's going to be happening. So what can you do to, help your children sleep well? Getting outside is the best way to build sleep pressure. And sleep pressure is your body's drive for sleep. So getting outside, going to the park, going, bike rides, walks, anything outdoors is great. Playing any type of games with your children, on the floor, at a table, doing some yoga. If you've ever watched, any YouTube videos on yoga, there's so many that are great for kids. My kids love cosmic yoga, and also reading before bed. Whether you're reading to them, they're, telling you a story before bed, anything that involves, reading, communicating, all of those types of things are great ways to have quiet time before a sleep period. We want to make sure that we're, if we're having a snack before bed, which many children do, that we are avoiding, sugary snacks, chocolate, any type of sugars. In our house, we try to promote a fridge snack before bed, any types of fruits, crackers, yogurt, cheese, those types of things are great snacks to have before bedtime. And, if you are looking to have, a sugary snack in that, I would keep it to maybe right after dinner as opposed to before your bedtime. And like I was saying, communicate to them, when bedtime is coming, giving them warnings that it's coming, what we're going to do for bedtime routine. Talk about everything that you're doing, no matter the age of your child, whether if they're under the age of 1, talking to them, will help to build their vocabulary, right? We always think that maybe, oh, they're too small, they don't understand. They absolutely are, sponges. They are taking in all of the information, constantly developing, building vocabulary in their head. Although they can't communicate all of those things, their brain is working, to learn and absorb all of those things. So, constant dialogue is key as well. So our sleep space is a very important space to be a part of, and we want to make sure that it has some key elements in it to help with sleep. So I had mentioned, the blackout curtains. Sometimes blackout curtains aren't enough. So some people have blinds underneath and then the blackout curtains over top. Some people have those beautiful arched windows, which can be tricky when it comes to, covering. We've used like a black foam board that we've cut to fit the arch at our house. Garbage bags also work wonders, black garbage bags. They don't look beautiful, but they definitely help to keep that bright light from coming in, especially because our children are going to bed at this time of year when it's still very bright outside. And so you want to make sure that it is dark. You can even like start to go around your house even after dinner time and start to close, you know, the blinds in that, so that it starts to, you know, give our body that sign that, you know, sleep is coming our way, right? Start to tone things down a little bit, work on quiet activities as opposed to, you know, running laps around the house and, you know, getting them all riled up. So yeah, keeping the space very dark, making sure the room is like not too hot, but not too cold. Anywhere from between 20 to 23 degrees Celsius is quite a comfortable temperature to have your room. It also, you know, everybody's house is different. Some rooms in the house have different temperatures than other rooms. So, you know, just be mindful of what the temperature is. Sometimes if it's too hot, children have a hard time sleeping. So you might want to make sure you're dressing appropriately for the temperature of the room that your child is sleeping in. We also want to make sure that there are no toys in the bed. And by toys, I mean like anything extra. If your child has a lovey, a special stuffy that they like to sleep with, after 12 months of age, after the age of 1, we do allow blankets, pillows, and stuffies in the bed. We do limit these things to just one stuffy. We want to refrain from having, you know, 10 of them around, more so just because they end up being a distraction. And so it ends up becoming a play period as opposed to a sleep period. So we really want to make our children know that our bed is just for sleep. And so we can do that by making it as boring as possible. And so just having one, you know, a special blanket or, you know, a lovey. My daughter sleeps with a blanket and her stuffy. And, you know, those two things are okay because she doesn't spend her time playing with them when she's going to sleep. We find when there are multiple characters and toys, trucks, superheroes, and, you know, all of those things that our kids love, if we bring them into the bed, they're just a distraction. So we want to keep all of those things out of the bed, you know, put them on the dresser for the next day or keep them in your toy room, and just limit it to one thing, you know, for the bed. And I had mentioned before, you know, I really encourage reading before bed. It's a very relaxing activity to engage in. I will note, not all children love to read before bed, and this is okay. You know, while we want to foster reading, you know, maybe your child prefers to do, you know, puzzles before bed, or, you know, my daughter has these wooden beads that she likes to string on. You know, you can blow bubbles, you could, you know, listen to some quiet music. You know, there are other options besides reading before bed, but, you know, I do encourage reading as well as, you know, some other quiet, calm activity that they can engage in before bed. So you want to have a consistent and predictable bedtime routine. And I mean, they typically last anywhere, they can last from 20 minutes to, you know, 30 minutes. Honestly, it should be a maximum of like 40 minutes should be the maximum for your bedtime routine. You want to, if it goes longer than that, it's just a really like long drawn out process. We really want to you know, be efficient with our time. And so we want to make sure that we're giving them a warning when bedtime is coming. You know, and this comes with any age. We want to give them a warning, a 10-minute warning, a 5-minute warning. You can set a timer on your phone, on your stove, whatever it may be. If you have, you know, a toddler, they love to, you know, hear the sound, you know, that the timer's gone off. And the more consistently you're doing things like this, the easier the process becomes. So, you know, giving them a warning is key, as opposed to just saying, okay, it's time for bed. You're really going to get a lot of pushback if they're in the middle of, you know, playing and engaged in something, and now you've decided it's bedtime without giving them any warning. So give them a warning, let them know. They, you know, might not always be happy about it, but at least you've given them, you know, a heads up of what's coming next. You want to make sure for your bedtime routine that, we try to have a bath every night. There are many families who cannot participate in a bath every night if they have, their children have eczema or different skin conditions. Whatever it may be, if you can engage in a bath every night, I encourage you to do so. It is a nice way for the body to relax before going to sleep. If you're not having a bath, that's fine too. You can just take a warm cloth and wipe their face and their hands and their feet. Change their, if they're in underwear, change their underwear. If they're in a diaper, change their diaper, put their pajamas on, brushing their teeth, whatever sequence of events were happening, it should always, have like some kind of wipe down or bath, brushing their teeth, some kind of toileting, diapering, pajamas off, either reading or a quiet activity, and then we're saying our good nights. And we want to keep that the same pattern happening every night and then every night of the week. And we want to keep the same order of events so that it becomes predictable for them and they know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. We want to make sure that when it is time to, get tucked in, we've given them a warning. If we're reading, 2 books tonight, okay, 1 more book, and then, it's bedtime. Okay, we're finished our last book, now it's time for bedtime. And, maybe you have a key phrase that you say to your child before we put them to bed. Good night, mommy loves you, I'll see you in the morning. Whatever it may be, keep it consistent, the same, key phrase each night, whether, and it doesn't mean that you and your partner, have to have the same key phrase. You do not, just keep it consistent between you and your child. So they know that, this is the signal that, okay, mom is leaving the room and it's time for bed for me. And, we want to make sure that our children are wide awake when we're putting them down for sleep. And this is a key thing because however our children fall asleep the first time is going to be the way they're going to need to fall asleep every time they're coming out of sleep cycles. So if we've rocked or held or fed our child to sleep, when they come out of a sleep cycle, they're going to be looking for those exact same things to get them back to sleep the next time. And so this is where we get multiple night wakings happening because some sort of sleep association was used to get our child to sleep the first time. So we really want to encourage those opportunities to put our children down alert and awake so that they can, when they wake up out of a sleep cycle, that they can get themselves back to sleep without requiring you to consistently come back and intervene to help get them back to sleep. So if you have a toddler or a school-aged child, and we're wanting to build up, success for them when it comes to sleep, going to sleep on their own, sleeping through the night. Those are a lot of challenges that we see with children of many ages, right? It's not just babies, it's toddlers, it's school-aged children. But there are things we can do to help with that process. If they're old enough, you can, choose rewards together. Take them to the dollar store, take them somewhere to choose a small reward. It could be stickers, it could be chalk, it could be bubbles. If they like little, like little figurines, if they like dinosaurs, whatever it may be, anything that they are really intrigued by. It's got to be a reward that is meaningful to them. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So you want to make sure whatever reward you have in place is something that they're willing to work for. A rise to shine clock is also great to have. They're really most effective for children who are age 3 and above. And those are, if you've ever heard of a grow clock, or there's the Hatch that has a rise to shine function. These are clocks that you can set to light up at a certain time frame. So if you want your child to be up by 7 o'clock, you can program the clock to turn on at 7 o'clock. Many of them you can choose colors for them to, turn purple at 7 o'clock or turn yellow or green. And it's a fun way for your children to get involved in choosing the color, as well as it signals to them when it's time to wake up and when they're allowed to get out of their bed. There is a little bit of a learning curve with teaching them about this clock, teaching them what it does, how it works, and how they'll be rewarded if they stay in their bed until, the clock lights up. It's really key that you explain to them, this process, what it looks like, what's going to happen, and model for them what it's going to look like so they really understand what's going to be happening. And this process is only effective if you are consistent. Putting this plan in place means we are going to follow it every single day, even when times get tough, because they will. Toddlers are a challenge, after, our little ones, get to like 18 months kind of thing. They're always looking to, push boundaries in that, right? So the more consistent we are, the better things are going to be for you long term. You always want to review with them every single night, this is the reward we're working for if you stay in your bed all night. And if, you're able to, stay in your bed until the sun comes up, or if you're able to, sleep all night long. You want to talk about all of these things as well. And, those toddlers and preschool children, kindergarten children, a reward chart works beautifully with them. They love to, put a sticker on, each time they've done something. So that's a really great way to help keep them motivated. All right. And if our children are, sleeping well, we get to sleep well in turn. So when we're sleeping well, we know that we are more focused, we're more present, we are happier, we're more patient, right? When we are sleep deprived, I know I am less patient. Things tend to set you off a lot quicker when you haven't slept well. You won't be feeling as anxious as you would be if you were, lacking sleep. You just start to feel more like yourself. So it's really key to getting our children to sleeping well so that we can sleep well and we can be the best version of ourselves for our children and our families. So we have, hit the point in our presentation where I would love to answer any questions that you might have that are related to sleep. And hopefully I can help get sleep back on track in your home. Here's all of my information that you can, follow me on Instagram at MetaSleepCo_Alana. You can send me an email, and if for some reason we don't get to your question today, please feel free to send me an email or an Instagram message to ask me your question, and I would be more than happy to answer that for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alana. I think everything you mentioned and spoke to in this webinar has been really helpful to our parents. We have a lot of questions right now, and I would love to go over them with you. So let's begin. So our first question is, do you have any advice on how to implement a new and healthy sleep routine whereby parents don't have to stay in the room and pretend to sleep on the floor beside their child until they fall asleep?
Yes, absolutely. There are so many different methods for sleep coaching. And, some parents love to stay in the room while their children fall asleep. It can be a more gentle approach, but it doesn't work for all families, right? So there is, a strategy that you can put in place, a more of kind of a leave and check strategy. So, depending how old the child is, you could communicate that with them, but if they are still quite young, it would look like, putting them down for sleep, saying your key phrase, leaving the room and coming back to check on them, within intervals of time. Maybe you wait 2 minutes, leave and come back. If your child is protesting, right, we kind of look for a longer stretch of protest to see if they're going to settle themselves before us, intervening, right? Quite often we jump in to intervene too quickly. And it doesn't allow our children the opportunity to try and settle themselves. And so we want to give them, at least 5 solid minutes. If you can wait 10 minutes, that would be great too. But you want to give them, time to see if they're going to settle themselves before we enter back in and offer support to them. So there is a leave and check strategy that can be done to help, bridge that gap of, being in the room the entire time while their children fall asleep. And it's also about building that comfort level, having that safe space in their home. And I mean, children don't want us to leave at bedtime because they don't want to leave us, right? And so as long as we are filling their bucket during the daytime of, spending time with them, and it doesn't have to be a long amount of time. It's really about the quality of time you're spending with them. As long as you're filling their bucket and, fulfilling their checklist of things they need from us, they tend to not look for those things at bedtime. So trying to make sure we're spending time with them before and doing a leave and check strategy.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So a somewhat similar question for a toddler. So this parent is wondering any advice on how to get your toddler to sleep through the night and not sneak into mom and dad's bed and stay there for the rest of the night. These parents have tried the method of taking their child back to bed each time they were woken up and saw their child in their bed, but their child is relentless and wins. Is it worth continuing this approach?
Yes, consistency is key, but you have to make sure you are taking them back to their room every single time. And I know sometimes they're so good at sneaking in that we don't even notice them come, but as soon as you notice them in the room, you've got to immediately take them right back. And some nights this can happen like countless times where we often get to the point of exhaustion and we just are like, forget it, just stay in our bed. And so they know that you'll get to that point, right? And so they will keep going until they know that we're going to buckle, right? And so it's really hard for parents. It's honestly the hardest job because you've got to stay consistent and keep going back and forth, back and forth. Also implementing a reward system is also very effective if they haven't done that already. But, making sure you have that consistent bedtime, routine in place, making sure they're falling asleep on their own at bedtime, and making sure there is a reward in place if they do stay in bed all night long. This is the reward they're going to get. And sometimes even starting like with a series of smaller rewards. And then, if a whole week has gone by and they've done an amazing job, maybe they can get a bigger reward, right? So incentive is, great. And it could also be like a treat. Maybe you don't give your children Smarties all the time. And your kids love Smarties, give them 2 Smarties each time they've slept in their bed all night long. This will, build that motivation for them to want to do that.
Okay, thank you so much for answering my question. So another parent asked, their child breathes through his mouth day and night and snores when he sleeps. Does this affect the quality of his sleep?
I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I mean, my child also snores as well. And, our doctor did ask us to monitor, her sleep for sleep apnea, which can impact the quality of sleep. So it might be something that you would want to consider having a conversation with your doctor or pediatrician, with maybe getting a sleep test done to see, what could be the underlying factors of why they are, sleeping that way. I know often adenoids and tonsils are a big issue when it comes to sleep. We're going to be testing our daughter as well, who's quite the snorer, because her tonsils are quite large, which does, it can impact their sleep. But if they do have healthy sleep habits in place, they will sleep those long stretches of time. But you really just want to make sure that their breathing is, up to par. That would be my main concern.
Okay, thank you so much for that distinction. So for working parents who get back home at 6 p.m., do you have any tips on how to achieve the 7:30 bedtime? So in terms of preparing dinner, eating, refilling the love bucket, bath, brushing teeth, story time, all that good stuff?
I know, honestly, it is tough. I mean, I won't lie. And it's hard because there are so many households that we are, dual working parents, and it's just, we have to work to sustain a lifestyle in, this day and age. And so, I mean, what we can do is, we can prepare meals ahead of time. I mean, nobody loves doing this. I don't even love doing it, but we do it. So we take a day and we prepare as much as we can kind of for the week ahead. So on like a Sunday, let's say we take an hour or so out of our time and we, chop all the fruits and the veggies and, we put them, in Ziploc bags or containers so that we have easier access to them. And it just speeds up the process of dinner. Meal planning is also key. I do this every weekend. I sit down and I plan breakfast, lunch, and dinner for Monday through Friday. It also just helps keep organized, right? And so making sure we have everything in the house and ready to go, for all of those meals, that helps to make it run a little bit more smoothly. Don't be shy to order in things if you can here or there. If you have family who, in-laws or parents who like to make things for you to freeze and use at your convenience. I mean, take them up on the opportunity for that. So that when it comes to meals, I would suggest the prepping and the planning in advance as much as you can. And then when it comes to, coming home, we got to put dinner on the stove, and it's hard to interact with our children at that time, right? It just is. We can't watch the stove and our kids at the same time. So, I mean, trying to get them to engage in something close by to you is great. Even if they're playing independently close by, that's totally fine as well. That's always a good time if we're, having screen time in that's a great time to offer that. And then, after you're done dinner, try not to feel like you have to do the dishes right away, right? Really just kind of get into the mindset of, I'll do the dishes after the kids are in bed. And so, at least you have that extra time to spend with them, especially because the time frame is so short, right? Because by the time we've made dinner, eaten dinner, now it's probably close to 7 o'clock. Now we're going to start our bedtime routine. So we just really want to make sure we're maximizing that time that we have with them and try and, do our household chores kind of after they've gone to bed. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much. So another question this parent has is in regards to separation anxiety. So they have a 2-year-old who keeps waking up at 5 a.m. and asking for his or her parents to stay in the room and to hold him on the floor mattress. And then that's when the anxiety starts. So the parent had 2 back-to-back business trips, and they've been waking up at 5 every day for a month now. So even at naps at home have become shorter, and he's always waking up crying. At childcare, he seems fine, but she's wondering, how can I restore his sleep back to 6 a.m. wake up time?
Yes. So, I mean, making sure nap time, so daytime sleep and nighttime sleep work together, right? So if we're not sleeping well during the day and we're not sleeping well at night, well, now it's become like a cyclical effect. So, I mean, the children tend to sleep well at childcare centers because things are very regimented. They're very, consistent every single day. Nothing changes, right? But at home, there's more flexibility, right? And our children really know how to get us to do what they want when they want it. And so we are more likely to give in than a childcare provider would be, right? They just don't pull the same things at home that they do there. At childcare than they do at home. And so really staying consistent and true to your word and your expectations is really key in the big picture. Staying consistent, right? Making sure that, you have a nap time routine in place, that naps are happening at the time they're supposed to be happening. And the more you're consistent with that and, not giving up or giving in to, the many requests and demands that toddlers will have for you. They're thirsty. They need, to go to the washroom, even though they've just gone. Really staying away from negotiating with them because they'll negotiate with you till you're blue in the face. And so it's really important to, set those expectations and really stick by them. The more often you are going in and sleeping on the floor at 5 a.m., all it takes is for it to happen 2 to 3 times, and now it's become a new habit. And so that's why it's been going on for so long. So, why is he waking up at this time? Well, now it's become a habit, right? If I wake up at this time, I know that mom and dad are doing this, right? So it's going to keep happening as long as you continue to let it happen. And so, instead of, crawling in bed with him at this time, talk to him about, when you wake up at this time, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to, come in, I'm going to tuck you back in, and then I'm going to be going back to my bed. And, if they follow you, you're going to bring them, right back to where they need to be, and consistently walking back. Eventually, they get tired of the walking back and realize they're not getting anything from this. And, sometimes this can go on for like 2 weeks. I've seen this go on for having to continue to walk back to their room. They eventually get it, and then it no longer happens. But the longer you continue to, crawl into bed with them at this time, then it's going to continue to happen. And you might also, I don't know what scheduling looks like in their home. If he's going to bed too late, this will also cause early morning, wakes. So, bedtime could also be a factor as well. Send me a message. We can chat more.
Love that. So this parent, their son is 20 months old, and they're wondering when is the best time to switch from a crib to a toddler bed. He's not a good sleeper, and right now the only thing that works is the fact that he cannot leave the bed.
Yes. Keep them in their crib as long as possible. We say, if they're not 3 in the crib, they must be. And really, once they get to the age of 3, the comprehension is really set in on, a lot more rules and expectations. They just get a lot more and can execute a lot more. And especially if your child doesn't have good sleep skills in place, we definitely don't want to make a transition to a bed. Otherwise, they're just going to be getting out of their bed. They're going to have free range of your house, and it's just going to be a really sticky situation. So I would, work on getting healthy sleep skills in place first. So, making sure that there are no sleep props in place when they are going to sleep, steer away from the holding, the rocking, the feeding. Pacifier is also a sleep prop. Those are tools that are used to help get our children to sleep. And if they're not falling asleep independently the first time, they're going to be consistently looking for us to do the job for them. And so, putting a plan into place to getting them to sleep independently is key, so that they do have really strong sleep skills in place. And these sleep skills last a lifetime, right? When your child sleeps well, there's peace of mind at the same time. And so you want to make sure that's kind of taken care of before you transition to a bed. So I wouldn't be going anywhere yet.
Okay. Another parent has a question that I think follows this one really well. So their daughter transitioned to a regular bed at 22 months, but now she has the ability to come out, and she does a few times. So what should this parent do?
So yeah, again, the same, walking back to their room is key, so that they know that they can't, just come out and come into your bed kind of thing. You also, safety is a really big concern. A lot of parents, we transition our children to beds, but we're not thinking that, they can get out of the bed, they can come out of their room. What if they fall down the stairs? I hope, if you don't have a gate, there's the stairs, there's the bathroom, you have to make sure that everything is locked up in that. Scissors are dangerous, right? We don't often think about all of the other things, right? So, some parents will put a baby gate on their children's door. After they've closed it, you can still fit generally a gate on the other side, so that they don't have free range of the house. So at least if they're getting out of their bed, they can't be roaming around. If you don't have a gate at the door, making sure you have a gate at the stairs. Some parents will put a little lock on the doorknob and that, so they can't come out and have free range of the house. So you want to think about safety first. That's the most important thing. Having a gate there too will just also keep them in their sleep space. If they're crying for you, from there, give them a few minutes to see if they will, go back to their bed and go to sleep. Or, sometimes children will end up falling asleep on the floor by the door. And this is okay. They're not going to sleep on the floor forever. But while they're having this transitional period of being, in a new bed and, now having this freedom, they're going to explore their boundaries of what they can and can't do. So you've got to be consistent and remember safety first.
Amazing. Thank you for all these tips. So this parent, they are traveling to Europe soon and they want advice in regards to jet lag and if they should push bedtime while away. So I think this is a really interesting question because I know you wrote a blog for us on how to navigate sleep while traveling, especially for summer vacations right now. So I would love for you to answer this as well for our webinar.
Yeah. And if you haven't read that blog post, I suggest you head over as well. I mean, a lot of families travel different times of year, and we often get questions on how do I handle this and that. I mean, Europe, there's a big time difference, right? And so you have to have the mindset on your day of travel that really you have to lower your expectations. Okay. Don't, be so pressured on yourself that, oh my gosh, they have to nap at this time. They have to do this at this time. It's not going to happen. And if you have those expectations, it's going to be a very stressful trip for you. During that day of travel, let them sleep when they sleep. They are going to be overtired. There is going to be, behavior changes. This is just the way it is with a day of travel. Once you get to where you're going to be, depending if you're staying in like a home or a hotel, you want to bring all of those things from home with you. So, depending on the age of your child, if they're sleeping with a sleep sack, bring it with you. If they're using a sound machine, bring it. If they have a levy, a blanket, all of those familiar things from home, bring it. If they're still in a crib, I suggest you invest in a slumber pod. It's like a black tent that goes over top of a crib or a playpen and acts as blackout, the best tool ever. Those types of things are key to have. When it comes to the time change, you want to just jump into, the time zone of where you're going. If you're, leaving sooner than later, then you're just going to jump automatically in. Some families will try and adjust their sleep periods slightly before they go. And you can do that by, incremental time shifts by like 15 minutes, shifting your, scheduling to kind of slowly to match closer to the time frame of where you're going. But the first couple of days when you're going with a big difference in time, there's going to be an adjustment period. So, if you're going to have naps on the go in the stroller, I mean, go with it. Just try and enjoy yourself, but, it does make it more enjoyable when your child is well rested. So, if you're on the go during the day, make sure you have all the necessary things to have like stroller naps and that. And then, making sure you're getting to bed if you can, at an appropriate time for them, especially the first couple of days so that they can get into a new routine.
Great. And, August is coming to a close in a couple of weeks and people are just getting ready for back to school. So this parent says children have anxiety or excitement before the first day of school. They are unable to follow the sleep routine they have been following. So how can we transition kids into a regular sleep routine despite the next day's schedule?
Start now. Like we still have a few weeks before. The more gradual the process is, the easier it becomes, right? You don't even have to tell your kids you're changing their schedule or anything like that. If you just slowly start to, shift their bedtime and, ensure that they're having the same wake up time each day, it makes for the process to be a lot easier. And anxiety, tends to come from, a fear of like what's to come kind of thing. So if it's their first time, going to school, right, we want to prepare them for what's to come, showing them videos, taking, reading books, taking them to see, their new school or childcare center. Making sure we're filling their bucket in terms of, love and, interactions and things like that. That helps as well. But honestly, having a well-rested child helps to eliminate so many other things, the anxieties, the stresses, the behaviors, all of those things, right? So if we're sleeping well, it really kind of checks off all the other boxes on its own. So, getting it back into, some good sleep skills will definitely help the transition of that process.
Thank you. So the next question is in regards to pacifiers. So this parent, they're relying on the pacifier to help their child go to sleep without a fuss at night, but they are in the process of getting rid of it altogether. Is there anything that they can do to help her accept going to sleep without the pacifier?
So again, this is age dependent. I'm not sure how old the child is. When we are working with clients to remove the pacifier, we do it cold turkey. So it's honestly the easiest way to go about it, because it kind of becomes like a tease to them if we're gradually taking it away. Well, you can use it in this situation, but you can't use it in this situation. And so it becomes confusing to them as to why can I use it here, but not here? So often pacifiers are harder for parents to take away than it is for the actual child. So, if they are young on the younger end, we're going to take it away cold turkey, and, we've got to distract with other things. If it's during the daytime, if they were just using it to like self-soothe during the daytime, well, find other things to do instead with toys, chew toys, things like that can help. But when it comes to sleep periods, some children will naturally suck their thumb in replacement of the pacifier. There is a transitional period of taking it away, right? It doesn't just, magically happen that our kids are okay with it. More hugs, more snuggles, that reassurance piece, needs to be there as well. But it does take, sometimes it takes one day and sometimes it takes like 3 days for them to get into, the groove of no longer having the pacifier. But when you do take it away cold turkey, make sure you've removed all of them from your household so they don't find any like in the diaper bag or in, the toy box or something like that. Because then it just becomes, harder to have that process of taking it away. For toddlers, there's so many great ways that you can take it away and reward them at the same time. One of the clients I worked with, she did, they called it their pacifier the Susu. They had the Susu fairy come, and so they put all of the pacifiers in a box. And while she was at daycare that day, the Susu fairy came and took all of them away, and then left a little present for her. And they had a party for her, when she came home from daycare. Another family, they planted them in their garden. And, then while they were away or sleeping or something, and the next day the parents planted flowers, so that they saw that they turned into flowers, right? There's a lot of things, honestly, even if you just Google, there's so many different cute ways that you can involve your children in the process of taking it away.
Amazing. And then the last question here that I have for you for today is any advice for a toddler who often won't eat a lot at dinner, but is always hungry right before bed?
The more you're offering snacks after bed, the more they're going to stop, eating dinner and wait for that snack to happen. So, we want to make sure our children are having full feeds throughout the day so that they're not looking for snacks later on. If we've gotten them into this habit of having, this big elaborate snack before bedtime, well, now this is what they're going to be looking for. So we want to make sure that, if there's certain things that they're having at that snack period that they really like, well, I would be offering those, with your dinner or, before, snacks during the day so that they're not looking for them then. And then I would kind of stick to, certain snacks only being offered, after dinner time, fridge snacks, and that specifically are, a great choice.
Okay, thank you so much, Alana. That was all of the questions that we have. I want to say thank you so much for this wonderful Kidco talk with everyone here. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge today and the services that MetaSleep has to offer. I know there were parents who have more questions that they wanted to ask that we didn't have the opportunity to address today. So please feel free to reach out to Alana and she can address those. A lot of questions were also very similar to one another. So if you had missed it at the beginning, we will be sharing this recording following today's session and other materials, as well as a survey that will be popping up at the end of this webinar. So thank you again, everyone. And Alana has actually written blogs for us on our Kidco website portal as well. So feel free to check them out for more educational tips regarding sleep.
Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing from some of you if we didn't get a chance to answer your question today.
Thanks again, Alana. Bye.
Great day.